The galaxy had watched Earth for centuries as a curiosity. The primitive humans had never even been aware of the attention cast upon them. Their rapid expansion into the stars had sparked the interest of three ancient galactic empires, the Zorvans, who ruled with an iron fist of military might, and brute force the Andromen, who manipulated the very fabric of space with their terrifying advanced technology, and the Velans, a race of cunning diplomats who controlled the economy of entire star systems with their webs of influence and coercion. Each had their own reason for wanting Earth's resources, but all of them agreed on one thing: the humans were not worth a place at the galactic table. They were primitive and disposable. The three empires saw Earth's people as little more than tools to be used, until their value was depleted and discarded. When the Council of Three decreed that humanity would be branded a lesser species, they sealed Earth's fate, locking them in a cage of condescension and dismissal. The humans, unaware of this decision, continued to expand their colonies across the galaxy, carving their place into the stars, unaware that the vast powers above were already plotting their eventual subjugation. As Earth's colonies spread, the alien empires began to tighten their grip. These vast and ancient races began their quiet war against humanity's growth, slowly infiltrating human systems of governance, turning once neutral parties into pawns of the greater galactic game. Trade routes were redirected, colonies were left defenseless to alien raiders, and humans were powerless to stop the slow tide of alien control. But humanity was not without strength. No one had truly understood the depth of human resolve, or the hidden weapons they had prepared in the silence of their homeworld. The greatest secret of Earth was not their resource wealth or their rapid technological rise, but the Dreadnought fleet. These ships had been constructed in secret long before humanity even considered joining the galactic stage. Constructed from designs older than their spacefaring ambitions, these vessels were a marvel of ancient human engineering, built to be self-sustaining in the void of space and capable of destroying anything in their path. They were designed for a war that humanity had yet to face, a war that would come when the galaxy thought Earth was ready for nothing more than servitude. But these ships were not just military tools. They were a symbol of humanity's true potential, a weapon unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, and they had been waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves for the galaxy to see what it meant to underestimate the human race. It wasn't just the dreadnoughts that made humanity dangerous, but the people themselves. The humans who had risen from the ashes of their past through war and struggle had forged something unbreakable in the depths of their hearts and minds, something the galaxy had never encountered before: determination, the will to fight for survival, and the unity forged from centuries of hardship, a unity that no alien empire could ever hope to match. No matter how advanced or powerful, they were humanity's true strength, had always been in their ability to adapt, to overcome their limitations, and to survive no matter the odds. And the galaxy was about to learn that lesson in the most brutal way possible. The time for diplomacy was over, the time for action had arrived, and as the alien fleets grew closer to Earth's borders, humanity's greatest secret was about to awaken. In the deepest recesses of Earth's solar system, hidden beneath the orbits of distant moons, and beyond the detection of alien scanners, lay the fleet, a fleet so massive and advanced that even the most seasoned galactic minds would struggle to comprehend its existence. Humanity had known from the beginning that the galaxy would not welcome them with open arms, and so they had prepared in secret. Buried deep in the heart of their homeworld's forgotten history, the Earth governments had gathered the finest engineers and architects to design and construct these warships in the shadows of space. As Earth's people pushed further into the stars, the dreadnoughts took shape, each one a testament to human ingenuity and resilience. These colossal ships were built not just as vessels of war, but as symbols of humanity's ultimate defiance, a message for any power who would dare threaten their existence. Each dreadnought was equipped with technology beyond the understanding of the galactic empires, shields that absorbed energy and redirected it back in a deadly torrent, gravity work cannons capable of tearing apart entire fleets in the blink of an eye, and artificial intelligence so advanced it could predict the movements of enemy ships before they even moved. The construction of these ships was not a simple task. It took decades, and it was done under the strictest secrecy. Only a handful of Earth's most trusted leaders and scientists knew the true scale of what was being built. The public had no idea that such a fleet even existed, and as the alien empires continued their slow and deliberate push against Earth's colonies, the dreadnoughts waited dormant at the edge of human civilization, each one more formidable than the last. And they were not alone in their power. They were part of a larger strategy, one that had been planned from the very beginning, for humanity had learned the most important lesson from their years of conflict with the galactic powers: never trust anyone, not even allies, and certainly not anyone who thought themselves superior. And as the empires continued their relentless march, humanity had quietly constructed a network of allies among the stars. These were the ones who had seen Earth's potential before the Council had branded them primitive, and they were prepared to offer their assistance when the time was right. But the true weapon, the true turning point, lay within the Dreadnought fleet. It was said that the ships themselves were nearly indestructible, and that their engines ran on a power source so volatile and immense that it could wipe entire star systems from existence. In one swift strike, humanity had made the decision to build these ships not just for defense, but to send a message to the rest of the galaxy, a message that humanity would no longer kneel, and that anyone who sought to take from them would face the full wrath of their strength and their unity. The dreadnoughts were Earth's trump card, the final line of defense against an uncaring universe that had long dismissed them. And now, as the alien fleets began their approach to Earth's borders, the time for secrecy was over. Humanity's long-hidden weapons were about to take flight. The galaxy was about to learn that the species they had mocked for centuries had not only survived against the odds, but had risen to meet them with a power that would shake the stars themselves. The Dreadnought fleet would not remain in the shadows any longer. It would make its presence known, and the galactic empires would never forget the price of underestimating humanity. The three galactic empires had grown overconfident, each believing that their military superiority and ancient technologies would make short work of Earth's defenses. To the Zorvans, humans were nothing more than a nuisance to be wiped away with force, their strength measured only by the crude weapons they wielded. The Andromen, with their strange abilities to manipulate time and space, dismissed humanity as primitive creatures too weak to challenge their calculated precision. And the Velans, masters of diplomacy and subtlety, believed that with their web of influence and economic power, they could squeeze humanity into submission without ever having to raise a weapon. In the eyes of these galactic titans, Earth's fate was sealed. It was a matter of when, not if. Yet, as the final stages of the invasion were underway, something strange began to unfold. Humanity's resistance was more than just fierce. It was unpredictable. In the face of overwhelming odds, the people of Earth had come together like never before. Their colonies, once scattered and vulnerable, united in an act of defiance the galaxy had never witnessed. No longer were they content to cower beneath alien rule. The vast reaches of space were their home, and they would fight for every inch. The first skirmishes, small and inconsequential in the eyes of the invaders, began to turn the tide. Earth's resistance fighters, though outmatched in technology, used clever tactics and unparalleled courage to sabotage supply lines and cripple alien fleets. Slowly, the invaders began to realize something was wrong, something they had overlooked. Humanity, for all its supposed primitiveness, was not just surviving, it was adapting. The Zorvans, emboldened by their military might, were the first to strike against Earth's colonies in full force. They attacked the largest human settlement on the Outer Rim, confident they would crush the human resistance in one decisive blow. But what they didn't expect was the network of hidden weapons humanity had already placed in orbit. These were not the advanced dreadnoughts, the true weapons humanity had kept secret, but smaller, swarming fighter fleets, each piloted by Earth's bravest soldiers. When the Zorvans breached the colony's atmosphere, they were greeted with a barrage of fire from ships that appeared out of nowhere, hitting them from every direction. It was chaos. The Zorvan ships, which had once been invincible, now found themselves overwhelmed by the relentless attacks of the humans, who fought with a fierceness that shocked their enemies. Meanwhile, the Andromen, who prided themselves on their near-perfect control over space and time, found that their technological supremacy didn't guarantee victory against humanity's stubborn unpredictability. Human ships, though inferior in raw power, moved in ways the Andromen could not anticipate, always just a step ahead of their opponents. For every Andromen weapon designed to warp time itself, humanity countered with clever tactics that defied logic and reason. The Andromen fleet, despite their manipulations, began to falter as they struggled to keep up with human ingenuity and relentless aggression. What the Andromen failed to understand was that human unpredictability, their ability to think outside the box, was their greatest weapon. The Velans, always the shrewd diplomats, expected to be able to broker a deal, an economic agreement that would leave Earth subjugated but alive. They were wrong. Earth's leaders, tired of being treated like cattle, had no intention of negotiating. The Velans sent emissaries to Earth, hoping to offer an alliance or at least a way out. What they were met with was an ultimatum: surrender or face total destruction. The Velan negotiators returned to their fleets in shock. Earth would not bend. They would not beg. The galaxy was beginning to change, though the full scope of that transformation was still unknown. As the Zorvans, Andromen, and Velans dealt with their unexpected setbacks, they grew frustrated, confused by humanity's resilience. They knew they had underestimated Earth, but they still believed their final victory was inevitable. After all, no species in the galaxy had ever successfully risen against their combined might. Humanity was simply too small, too disorganized, too primitive to win. The question in every alien mind was not if the humans would fall, but when. And yet, as each day passed, the notion that humanity could be crushed seemed less certain. The Dreadnoughts remained hidden, waiting for the right moment, but Earth had already begun to show that even without them, it was a force to be reckoned with. The stage was set. The invasion had begun, but the galaxy had no idea just how deadly a cornered human could be. The quiet hum of the Dreadnought's engines echoed in the darkness of the Sol system as they finally awoke from their long slumber. Humanity had been patient, biding its time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. That moment had arrived. As the alien fleets tightened their grip on Earth's colonies, believing victory was imminent, the great warships that had remained hidden for centuries slowly powered on. Their activation was like a distant tremor that reverberated throughout the system, felt by every ship and every radar in the galaxy. The Zorvans, Andromen, and Velans had no idea what was coming, and by the time they realized it, it was far too late. The first signs of humanity's dreadnoughts came not with a roar or a blast, but with the faintest distortion in space. The ships were cloaked, their technology so advanced that even the most sophisticated alien sensors could not detect them. For days, the galactic invaders searched the outer reaches of the Sol system, growing more frantic with each passing moment. They searched for signs of activity, for any hint that Earth's hidden fleet had stirred, but the dreadnoughts remained silent, their dark forms blending into the void, waiting for the command to strike. And then, without warning, they appeared. The largest dreadnoughts broke free from the shadow of Jupiter's moons, their hulls gleaming with eerie energy as their powerful thrusters ignited. The immense ships were like nothing the galaxy had ever seen, their designs so foreign that they almost seemed to warp reality itself. These were no ordinary warships. These were the last line of humanity's defense. And now, they were ready to make their presence known. As the dreadnoughts powered up, their weapon systems activated with terrifying precision. The Zorvan and Andromen fleets, already spread thin across human space, were scattered and vulnerable. The Velans, always the cautious diplomats, had underestimated the resolve of the humans. They had never once considered the possibility that humanity had built such a fleet, that Earth's forces could rise up and turn the tide of the war in an instant. The first blast came from the Vanguard, humanity's flagship, a beam of concentrated energy that sliced through the Zorvan battlecruisers like a hot knife through butter. The invader ships, once bristling with confidence, were now disintegrating under the sudden onslaught. The alien fleets tried to retaliate, firing their advanced weapons at the dreadnoughts, but the energy shields shimmered with an intensity that seemed to mock their every attempt. The power of humanity's ships was incomprehensible, their weapons devastating enough to tear entire fleets apart in seconds. Within minutes, the Zorvan forces had been obliterated, their massive warships reduced to charred hulks, drifting lifeless in space. The Andromen, never ones to back down from a fight, were the next to engage. Their ships attempted to warp space around them, using their time-manipulating technology to evade the human fleet. But the dreadnoughts were ready. Their weapons didn't just fire in linear paths. They anticipated every move, every shift in space-time, and countered it with brutal efficiency. The Andromen ships, despite their best efforts, were torn apart. Their greatest weapon, their ability to manipulate time, proved useless against the raw power and unpredictability of humanity's dreadnoughts. Within hours, the Andromen fleet was in disarray, their ships retreating into the darkness of deep space, hoping to lick their wounds and regroup. The Velans, caught off guard by the swiftness of humanity's response, attempted to broker a peace, offering alliances and negotiations in a desperate bid to save their fleets. But Earth's leaders were no longer interested in diplomacy. They had been betrayed by the Galaxy's powers, underestimated and oppressed for far too long. The message was clear. Humanity would no longer bow to anyone. The Velans were forced to retreat, their once proud empire now crippled by the unrelenting advance of Earth's fleet. As the human dreadnoughts continued their sweep through space, dismantling the invading forces with cold precision, a wave of shock and disbelief spread across the galaxy. The galaxy's great empires, which had once looked down on humanity, were now in retreat. Earth had risen from the ashes of their scorn to become a force capable of altering the balance of power in the galaxy. The dreadnoughts, once thought to be nothing more than a myth, had proven to be the weapon that shattered the Empire's dominance. But even as humanity basked in its victory, the question remained, what would the galaxy do now? Would they come for Earth again, or had the human race earned their place at the table forever? One thing was certain. The galaxy would never forget the day humanity's dreadnought fleet arrived. The aftermath of the first wave of the dreadnought's appearance sent shockwaves across the galaxy. The once mighty fleets of the Zorvans, Andromen, and Velans were shattered, their forces decimated in a matter of hours. What was once believed to be an inevitable conquest had turned into a humiliating defeat for the invaders. Earth's dreadnoughts had proven themselves far more than the galaxy had ever bargained for, and now the enemies of humanity were scrambling to regroup, to find some semblance of order in the chaos left behind. But the human fleet was not done. Far from it. The dreadnoughts, which had once remained hidden in the shadows, now flew across space like a storm unleashed, their powerful engines propelling them toward their next targets. The Zorvans, in a desperate bid to salvage what little remained of their pride, launched a counterattack, hoping that sheer numbers and brute force might still turn the tide. But they were too late. Humanity's ships were already there, waiting. The Zorvan counterattack came with everything they had, hundreds of ships, each one bristling with weapons and firepower. They surrounded Earth's dreadnoughts, their fleet a dark sea of destruction. Yet humanity's response was swift and unrelenting. The dreadnoughts didn't retreat or hesitate. They surged forward, weapons firing with pinpoint accuracy. The Zorvan ships, despite their vast numbers, were no match for the precision and power of humanity's fleet. The first wave of Zorvans was annihilated in seconds. The second wave fared no better. Every attempt to regroup was met with destruction. The Zorvans had underestimated humanity's firepower, and now they were paying the price. In the midst of the battle, one of humanity's most feared weapons was deployed. The Reclaimer, a dreadnought designed for one purpose: to crush entire fleets in the blink of an eye. Its gravity warp cannons unleashed a torrent of destructive energy, creating a ripple through space itself, distorting reality, and causing entire sections of the Zorvan fleet to collapse in on themselves. The energy released was so powerful that even the surviving ships couldn't escape the deadly pull of gravity. They were torn apart, reduced to debris before they even had a chance to fight back. The Zorvans, who had once believed themselves unstoppable, now found themselves facing a nightmare they couldn't comprehend. Meanwhile, the Andromen, still reeling from their defeat, tried to use their advanced temporal manipulation abilities to gain an advantage. They bent time itself, creating pockets where seconds stretched into minutes and minutes collapsed into moments. But humanity's ships were not bound by the same limitations. The Dreadnoughts, built with advanced AI systems that could predict and adapt to the Andromans' time-warping tactics, evaded every manipulation with terrifying accuracy. The Andromans' own weapons, which had once been the pinnacle of technological achievement, were now rendered useless. Their ships, unable to keep up with the human fleet's speed and unpredictability, were systematically obliterated. In a matter of hours, the Andromans' once proud fleet had been reduced to a scattered mess of debris. The Velans, who had tried to play the political game, now found themselves completely cut off from the rest of the galaxy. Their once impenetrable economic power was crumbling as Earth's dreadnoughts took control of key trade routes, shutting down vital resources that had once flowed through Velan-controlled space. The Velans, desperate to salvage their empire, pleaded for peace. But it was too late. The Velans had made their final mistake by underestimating humanity. They had thought they could manipulate Earth into submission. But now they had seen the true power of the human spirit. Earth would not negotiate with those who had enslaved and oppressed them. The galaxy, once a sprawling domain of ancient empires, now found itself in the midst of a shifting power dynamic. Humanity, once branded primitive, had risen to not just challenge the galactic empires, but to obliterate them. The Dreadnoughts had proven to be far more than just a secret weapon. They were a statement, a declaration. Humanity had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same again. But even as the dust settled and Earth's forces gained control of more star systems, a question loomed over the galaxy. How long would this uneasy peace last? The once united galactic powers, humiliated by their defeat, were regrouping. But their defeat was not just a blow to their fleets. It was a blow to their very identities. What would the next move be? Would they seek vengeance, or had humanity proven itself too strong to challenge? Earth had won the first round, but the war was far from over. The galaxy would never forget the day humanity's dreadnoughts made their mark. The galaxy had grown quiet, but only for a moment. The shattered remains of the Zorvan, Androman, and Velan fleets drifted through space, testament to the fury and precision of Earth's dreadnoughts. The invading forces, once so confident in their superiority, had learned the bitter truth that humanity was no longer a species to be dismissed or ignored. Yet as the alien empires licked their wounds and regrouped, there was a palpable sense of unease throughout the galaxy. Earth had struck hard, but had the empires truly been defeated, or had humanity simply bought itself a temporary respite? In the wake of their victory, Earth began to consolidate its newfound power. The once fragmented colonies, left vulnerable and disconnected by the alien invasion, now stood united under a banner that had never existed before. Humanity, for the first time in history, had a singular identity. No longer were they a collection of disparate factions. No longer were they divided by the petty squabbles of their homeworld. The Dreadnoughts had done more than obliterate alien fleets. They had forged a unity that no power in the galaxy could now ignore. Earth's new government, formed from the ashes of old regimes, quickly began to expand its influence, claiming territory from the defeated empires and securing vital trade routes that had once been the exclusive domain of the galactic powers. But for every action, there is a reaction, and the galaxy's response to Earth's rise was swift and inevitable. The remaining forces of the Zorvans, Androman, and Velans met in secret conclaves on distant worlds, away from prying eyes. Humiliated and broken, they cast aside their rivalries and agreed on a singular goal: revenge. They would not let humanity's rise go unpunished. They would rebuild, adapt, and strike once more. The arrogance that had fueled their belief in their invincibility still burned in their hearts. They would not allow one insignificant, primitive species to rewrite the balance of power in the galaxy. But this time, they had learned from their mistakes. They would not rush headlong into a confrontation like before. Instead, they would operate in the shadows, using their vast intelligence networks to sow discord and distrust among the human colonies. They would employ new tactics, creating alliances that Earth could not anticipate. The Zorvans would build warships unlike any seen before, and the Andromen would create temporal weapons to destabilize Earth's newly formed government. The Velans, masters of manipulation and trade, would target Earth's economy, attempting to isolate humanity from its newfound allies and resources. They were not going to let Earth's military dominance be the final word in this galactic struggle. Meanwhile, Earth's leaders remained focused on the task of securing their hard-won victories. But even as their fleets patrolled newly claimed space, a quiet fear lingered. For all their power, they had not yet fully conquered the galaxy's shifting politics. Earth's enemies were rebuilding, and they were not idle. The Dreadnoughts had been humanity's secret weapon, but they were not the only tool in the galaxy's arsenal. The human race now had to contend not only with the remnants of the old empires, but also with the rising challenges of navigating the complex, shifting allegiances of a galaxy that had once ignored them. In the hidden corners of the galaxy, away from the watchful eyes of humanity's dreadnoughts, the Zorvans, Andromen, and Velans gathered their forces. Their embassies had been cut off, their fleets decimated, but they were not defeated. The powers of the galaxy had underestimated humanity's potential, but now they had one advantage: time. They could prepare, they could rebuild, and when the moment was right, they would strike again. Earth, for all its triumph, was about to discover that the war it had started was far from over. The galaxy was a vast and dangerous place, full of ancient powers that were not so easily crushed. The Dreadnoughts may have turned the tide in the first battle, but the true test of humanity's survival had just begun. The greatest threats to Earth's future would no longer come in the form of massive fleets, but in the webs of deceit, manipulation, and subterfuge woven by those who had once ruled the galaxy. Earth had fought to survive, but now it had to learn to navigate a universe that would never again see it as a mere pawn. And in the darkness of space, the galaxy's empires began their quiet march toward revenge, watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The first cracks in the human alliance began to show sooner than anyone expected. Despite their victories, Earth was still very much a newcomer to the galactic stage. The power and unity that had once bound humanity together now faced the pressures of leadership on an interstellar scale. With the alien empires beginning to rebuild their forces in secret, Earth's leaders found themselves caught between the delicate balance of maintaining control over their colonies and the ever-growing influence of former enemies lurking in the shadows. It wasn't just military force that would secure humanity's future. It was the intricate dance of diplomacy, economics, and the manipulation of power. But as Earth's leaders tried to strengthen their position, they found themselves challenged by those who had once been their closest allies. Some of the colonies, having tasted freedom for the first time, began to chafe under Earth's increasingly authoritarian rule. The same drive for independence that had fueled humanity's resistance now threatened to unravel the fragile unity of the newly formed Earth government. Once proud leaders of the colonies, now hesitant under Earth's heavy-handed tactics, began to question whether they were truly better off under humanity's new banner, or if they should seek their own paths in the galaxy. There was a growing movement among these separatist factions, human colonies that, having shed the chains of alien oppression, were now looking to assert their independence from Earth itself. Some wanted to break free from what they saw as Earth's imperialistic grasp, while others believed they could form their own alliances with the now rebuilding galactic empires. They no longer trusted the central authority of Earth, and soon their whispers began to reach the farthest corners of space. The great experiment of unity, of forging a human-led empire, began to feel more fragile with each passing day. At the same time, Earth's enemies, though still regrouping, were starting to see cracks in humanity's armor. The Zorvans, embittered by their losses, sent agents across human-controlled space, planting seeds of discontent among the colonies. The Andromen, ever calculating, used their temporal manipulation abilities to exploit vulnerabilities in Earth's infrastructure, causing destabilization within key planetary systems. And the Velans, masters of economic warfare, began to subtly influence the markets, making it increasingly difficult for humanity to maintain the resources it had so recently seized. The alien empires had learned their lesson. They would not strike directly, not yet. Instead, they would use the same methods that had kept them in power for millennia: subtlety, manipulation, and patience. Meanwhile, the Dreadnoughts, those titanic warships that had once been humanity's trump card, now sat in orbit, their massive forms reminders of humanity's greatest victory. But in the silence of space, they were also a reflection of humanity's growing isolation. The Dreadnoughts, though formidable, were not invincible. Their sheer power and the technology that had once seemed like an unbeatable advantage were starting to feel like an anchor weighing down humanity's progress. The galaxy had changed in ways humanity had not fully anticipated. A universe that had once looked down on Earth now watched with curiosity and growing concern. Earth's dreadnoughts may have decimated fleets, but they could not hold back the inevitable forces of political and economic strife. Earth's leaders, now grappling with the realities of their position, realized that the real battle was no longer about military supremacy. It was about holding the galaxy's fractured pieces together. They had defeated the alien empires in the first round, but the fight for survival would be won or lost in the quieter, more insidious battles for power. Could they keep their newfound unity intact, or would the very forces that had once sought to divide them tear them apart from within? The threats outside their borders were still looming, but the most dangerous ones were creeping closer to the heart of Earth's fragile alliance. The Dreadnought fleet, once a symbol of defiance, now stood as a silent reminder that victory had come at a price. Humanity had risen to the challenge, but it had yet to prove that it could maintain its place among the stars. The galaxy had watched Earth's victory with awe, but it was now watching to see whether humanity could overcome the deep divides that threatened to undo everything they had fought for. The true test of humanity's resolve was not in battle. It was in the struggle to hold its unity together as the tides of power shifted once again. The galaxy was waiting for the next move, and Earth, despite all its strength, was now at a crossroads. Would it remain a united force, or would it fracture, leaving the door open for the returning galactic empires to reclaim their dominance? Time would tell. The shadows of the galaxy were stirring once more. The crossroads had arrived, and Earth found itself teetering on the brink of a new kind of war. A war not fought with dreadnoughts, but with hearts and minds. The colonies, once unified under the banner of Earth's resilience, now found themselves at odds with their former leaders. Separatist movements, born out of resentment and fear of Earth's growing authoritarian grip, gained traction by the day. The political landscape was fracturing. Earth's power, once seemingly unstoppable, was now facing an internal threat that could be just as devastating as the galactic empires that had tried to conquer them. In the depths of the colonies, whispers of revolution grew louder. Old leaders, who once swore allegiance to Earth's newfound government, were now openly challenging the central authority. Their message was simple. Humanity had fought for freedom, but now it was being shackled by its own. Earth, with its dreadnoughts and grand ambitions, had become what it had once rebelled against: oppressive, tyrannical, colonial. The cries for independence spread like wildfire, and soon, entire systems were on the verge of secession. The dreadnoughts, once the backbone of Earth's military might, were now a double-edged sword. They stood as a reminder of humanity's incredible power, but also of its overreach. Their presence, once a symbol of strength, now stirred fear and resentment across the colonies. And in the shadows, the alien empires, still licking their wounds, watched with growing interest. They knew that while Earth was distracted by its own internal struggles, it was vulnerable. The time was right for them to strike once more. The Zorvans, Andromen, and Velans, though fractured, had begun to forge covert alliances once more. In secret meetings, they shared resources, information, and new technologies. Their enemies were no longer humanity's dreadnoughts or warships. Their greatest enemy now was Earth's fragile unity. If they could tip the balance, if they could exploit the growing unrest among the colonies, they could turn the tides of war in their favor. The once proud empires saw their chance for revenge, not on the battlefield, but in the hearts and minds of humanity's divided future. Humanity, however, was not without its champions. Within the fractured government, a new generation of leaders rose to the occasion. They were visionaries, strategists who understood the nature of the galaxy and the forces at play. They knew that the key to humanity's survival did not lie solely in the dreadnoughts, but in diplomacy, innovation, and the ability to adapt. They reached out to the colonies, trying to rebuild trust, to show that Earth had learned from its past mistakes. The unity that had once seemed impossible was now being tested in ways that no one had anticipated. To preserve that unity, the human race would have to reconcile its thirst for power with its desire for freedom. In the quiet corners of the galaxy, Earth's enemies watched with bated breath. They knew that now was the moment to strike, before the human race could fully heal from its internal struggles. The empires would not take the first step in open war. They would wait for the colonies to collapse under the weight of their own discontent, wait for the government of Earth to fracture beyond repair. They knew that the end of humanity's experiment was within their reach. But Earth was not as fragile as it seemed. The dreadnoughts, once feared, had transformed into symbols of a more calculated, pragmatic power. The weapons that had once destroyed entire fleets now became tools of deterrence, not aggression. Humanity was learning to wield its newfound influence with wisdom rather than with force. They began to negotiate, not only with the colonies, but also with their former enemies. The question of whether peace could be forged between Earth and the galactic powers hung in the air, as tenuous as it was urgent. In the final days of the war, the galaxy watched as the fate of humanity hung in the balance. Would Earth, now tested by internal strife, be able to hold its ground, or would it succumb to the same forces that had tried to crush it? The dreadnoughts, once symbols of destruction, now became the last hope for an embattled species, a species that had risen from the ashes of oppression and fought tooth and nail for its place in the galaxy. Humanity had faced the greatest challenge of its existence and emerged victorious. But victory was never a guarantee. As Earth's leaders came together to negotiate peace, one thing became clear: the galaxy would never be the same again. Humanity had changed the very fabric of the universe, and whether they would remain a unified force or fracture into 1,000 pieces was a question yet unanswered. But one truth remained: humanity's place in the stars was no longer a dream. It was a reality that no one could ignore, not the galactic empires, nor the restless colonies. The story of humanity's rise, from primitive to powerful, had only just begun.